Hey, it's Ken Okel. Welcome to this presentation, which we are calling 5 Leadership Tips for 2021. Over the past year, there's been a lot of new challenges that have come into the workplace. I'm going to give you some solutions that may help, or at least make you a little more effective on the job. I want to give you a heads up that at the end of this presentation, you'll have an opportunity to download a special guide that I put together that highlights some of the key points of the presentation. That's coming up. Stay tuned. I think of it as a nice cheat sheet to have because sometimes you forget things, you need a little refresher. This one can be right at your fingertips. First concept is about the fact that we're all having to adjust. We're having to adjust from going from the old way of doing business to suddenly going to the new way of doing business. And it may be similar, but there may be a lot of changes. And that can be a frustrating thing. And often we have a lot of anxiety about that type of change. So one way I would suggest you think about that is to think about playgrounds. I don't know about you, but when I was in elementary school, my school had 3 different playgrounds, and they were for different ages of kids. So eventually, when you would start out on the playground where there were kindergartners and first and second graders, eventually you would go to the 3rd grade playground. And this had bigger slides, bigger jungle gym, better swings. Everything was made for bigger kids. At first, when you went there, you were a little nervous about it because you had mastered that younger playground. But on the inside, you knew the challenge was worth it. It was worth trying something new, even if you weren't that good at it at first. Eventually, it would become more and more comfortable. Think about making this type of change like that type of transition. It's a new adventure rather than a punishment. I think it's also very important to increase communication, especially if you're in a leadership role. Uncertainty is the enemy of effectiveness. If you don't know what a situation is, what's going to happen next, it's okay to tell employees, I don't know, but leaving uncertainty in their minds, that gets filled with doubt or rumors or other things. So try to make sure that you're keeping people in the loop. You're telling them what you're doing. You're telling them the challenges you're facing. Maybe you also include the stakes, especially if you need them to do something that's different and it's really important that they do it right, like some sort of safety protocol. Make sure you explain, hey, if we don't do this, these bad things could happen. So please buy into our initiative. More communication during challenging times is a must. You got to do it. I like this picture of the dog and the ball because we've all seen that animal that just loves that toy or ball and doesn't want to give it up. Sometimes that's us when it comes to the past. We don't want to let go of the past, of things that we enjoyed in the past, but now we can't. I understand that a lot of us have had to change things in our businesses, adapt, and we do look back. Maybe it's just the projections that we had in the past, that we were looking at a great year and then all of a sudden it got all torn up. And every once in a while we're like, oh man, I was so set up for a great year and it didn't happen. And it's really frustrating me. I understand. It's a challenge, but the sooner you can let go of looking back at the past, the more time you'll have to focus on the future. Can't change the past. You can adapt to the future. You don't want to miss opportunities because you're thinking too much about what could have been. So don't be afraid to let go. I like to call this eliminating ongoing problems. In any organization, there are these little problems. They're not huge. They're not going to kill your business in one day, but they're just things that are lingering around. It could be a piece of equipment that's broken a lot, a leaky faucet, perhaps a coworker or a customer who's always asking you the same question about a legitimate problem, but you haven't had time to get to the solution. I really stress to people to try to eliminate these problems as soon as possible. Here's an example. A few years ago, I was talking to someone who manages a club. So this is a place where members and guests come. They enjoy a lot of amenities. This person's in charge. A lot of things are under his responsibility. So he's having to do a lot. There was one member who would always walk up to him and comment on the nut bowls. Now, keep in mind, this is pre-COVID at a time when a club would put out bowls of nuts, assorted nuts. You get the picture. This gentleman always thought that there were too few cashews in the nut bowl. So he would always go up to the club manager. He'd say, hey, the nut bowls, what are you going to do? There's not enough cashews. This would happen again and again and again. Eventually, the club manager decided, I've had enough of this problem. He sends one of his associates out to the grocery store and says, buy the biggest bag of cashews that you can find and then pour them into every nut bowl. So we will have more than enough cashews for this gentleman. Thus, there were no more complaints about the cashews. This was a little problem. It wasn't that big, but it was an ongoing distraction. The more of these little problems that you can remove, the more time you have to focus on the big issues, the things that really matter. So sometimes to get to the big problems, get rid of all the small stuff. And of course, when you're making changes, when you're trying to improve behaviors or try new things, you're going to have temptations. You may have decided we're going with this strategy, but one day you're tempted to take a shortcut. Oh, we can make an exception this once. We don't have to enforce this policy. Resist this as much as you can. Good habits take time to form and time to be embraced. And if there's a special way you need things done, you need it to be followed. If you start doing shortcuts all the time, one, you're signaling to others that this is acceptable. But two, you're undermining what you're trying to do. You really have to fully commit and resist those temptations, no matter how good they look. And I got to admit, those temptations right there look pretty good. Getting close to lunchtime. Make sure you're resisting them. I hope these tips have proven useful. Here is the guide that I mentioned before. And what I'm doing, I have put the download link in the chat box right now, so you can download it. If you're watching this later on YouTube or on my website, hi, how you doing? Happy to have you here. I will also put that download link either in the article or the show notes so you can get it there. It's my gift to you. I hope it comes in handy. As I mentioned before, I like having little reminders to help me stay on track. Maybe that would have been the 6th tip there. More about me. My name's Ken Okel. My website, place where you can find out the most about me, my speaking engagements, my articles, kenokel.com, just like my name. Funny how that works out. If you want to email me, tvguy@kenokel.com. What's up with that? Well, years ago, I worked in TV news. When you'd be out and about, people would recognize you, general members of the public, viewers, and they would want to say hello to you, but they wouldn't remember your name. So they would invariably yell out things like, hey, TV guy, hence where the nickname comes from. And of course, I welcome if you would like to connect with me on LinkedIn. My LinkedIn profile is under my name, Ken Okel. I do ask if you send a connection request, just send me a little note in there that says where you first encountered me. That helps me on a few different levels, but it especially lets me know that you're not someone who's just trying to sell me something that I may not really need. I realize we've had a lot of challenges over the past few years. I hope these tips can help you in 2021. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Ken Okel. Take care.